Welcome to this Forza Motorsport track guide for Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya. While the ideal or braking lines are way better than in previous iterations of Forza and give a pretty decent idea of how to get around the track, there are still things these can't do. Knowing exactly where you should or shouldn't cut over a curb or extend the corner, and where exactly and how much you need to brake or maybe just lift can massively improve your lap times. Knowing other reference points for braking, turning into a corner and accelerating will make you a better racer in situations where you can't see the braking line. It also allows you to focus on what's going on around you instead of staring at the ground, which will in turn improve your racecraft. This guide will help you whether you want to turn off the braking line completely or just have a better understanding of a track to not rely on the line as heavily. We will focus on GT cars here, so remember to adjust your braking points depending on the car you're in. I will be showing you the BMW M8 and you will always be able to see my inputs for braking and accelerating in the bottom right. I'm HD Racing, and if you'd like to see more track guides like this one, let me know and subscribe to the channel to see when they get released. But without any further ado, let's take a look at Barcelona, starting with the Grand Prix circuit. Heading into turn 1, you will want to focus on the braking boards on the left side. Put your left two wheels on the left side curb for a wider entry. Look for the 150 board and brake at or shortly after it. In touring cars you can brake a bit later. Brake as much as you can without locking up the wheels and only trail off the brake as you start to turn in. You can cut over the curb quite a bit as long as you keep two wheels on the red and white part, but I found this to unsettle at least GT cars too much, so I avoid it here. But try to take a very tight line by going as close as possible to or even slightly on the red and white curbing while trying to set up for turn 2. Start accelerating after hitting the apex, but be careful not to go too far to the left side as this will compromise your line for the following turns. Go straight for a tiny bit before turning into turn 2. If you have set this up well, you will not need to lift off power here. You can cut over the curb on the left quite a lot, but be careful with the raised yellow block as this can unsettle your car. Keep accelerating and head a little bit more to the left side of the track for a good setup into turn 3. Turn in when the curbing on the right begins and keep accelerating. You will need to lift off soon though to not run wide and keep a tight line. In most cars, you will want to keep some power on to keep the car stable. Don't lift for too long and start accelerating out around when the third white tent on the left leaves your view and the crane is dead ahead of your car. Let the added power push your car wider and wider, but don't let all of your wheels go over the white line as that would invalidate the lap. Setting up for turn 4, you will want to position your car with your left wheels over the curb. Look to the left side and your braking point will be around halfway between the 100 and 50 boards, maybe a tiny bit later. Brake heavily and point your car to the corner to where the curb on the right begins. Start trailing off the brake when you get there and take a tight line. You can make use of the curb as well, but be careful to not touch the grass on the inside. When you hit the apex, start accelerating, but be careful to not spin the rear of your car around as it can get light here. You can let your car be carried all the way to the left side, but be ready to immediately go over to the right to set up for the hairpin of turn 5. Maximize track space on corner entry by putting your right two wheels over the curb. Here your braking point will again be around halfway between the 100 and 50 boards or maybe a tiny bit later once again. Brake heavily once again, but don't keep it on for too long as you turn in sharply. You can, but don't have to cut over the curb on the inside as long as you keep 2 wheels on the red and white curb. Start accelerating as you hit the apex, but be very careful to not understeer and go off the track on the right. You can, however, let the car run very wide here and use all the available curb if you need to. Once again, keep 2 wheels on the red and white bit. Accelerate out and aim for the apex of turn 6. Don't go too close to the left though, as you still want a good setup for turn 7 by being kind of parallel with a right-hand white line. Look for the beginning of the curb on the right side and brake shortly before that. This is the first corner where you don't have to brake as hard as with the previous ones. Get the car slowed down enough though to be able to make it around the turn. Depending on the car, you can cut over the curb on the left side quite a bit. Be careful with the yellow raised blocks once again though. If your car gets unsettled too much here, only put your left wheels on the red and white curb. Mid-corner, while still on the curb, start accelerating while still turning left. Your car will run wide on the right side of turn 8, where you again can cut over the curb quite a bit. Depending on your car, you will however once again want to avoid the raised yellow blocks, but a lot of cars can go over them fine. Keep accelerating and put your car all the way on the left side of the track while avoiding the gravel. As the curb ends, lift off the throttle and turn into turn 9. In most cars, a small little step on the brake will help your car to rotate into the corner to hit the apex shortly after avoiding the yellow block. Start accelerating after that and let the car carry you all the way to the left side. You can once again use all the available curb here, but avoid the gravel. Now you have a little bit of time to breathe as you make your way slowly to the right side of the track and put your right 2 wheels on the curb as you set up for turn 10. You will want to brake between the 150 and 100 boards, but closer to the 100, maybe around 110. In touring cars, you can once again brake a little later. Brake heavily and start to trail off the brake once you turn into the corner, aiming for the apex. You can once again cut over the curb quite a bit as long as 2 wheels stay on the red and white part. But once again, be careful with the yellow blocks as some cars don't like them. At least put your left wheels on the red and white curbing, however, and start accelerating shortly after hitting the apex. Take care to not run too wide on exit as you want to set up well for turn 12 while going through the short left bend of turn 11. You can cut over the colored tarmac as long as 2 of your wheels stay on the track. Try to position your car somewhere between the left side and the middle of the track for turn 12. Look for the end of the curb on the left and start turning in while lifting off the throttle and pushing the brake shortly. Go for a tight line, though you can carry the car outward a bit mid-corner. Aim to be close to the curb on the right again though for the second yellow block. This is also your reference point for starting to accelerate again. Take your car all the way to the left side and go over the curb as much as you can while avoiding the gravel. Slightly point your car towards the middle of the track when the curb ends and turn in more sharply shortly after into turn 13. A lift of the throttle should be enough here, though in some cars you will want to stab the brake lightly. You can cut here quite heavily as long as you keep your left wheels on the red and white curbing besides the white line. Don't worry about the cones, they don't affect most cars at all. Start accelerating again shortly before the curb already and carry your car all the way to the left side while making use of all the available track and curbing and just avoiding the gravel once again. Turn in slightly before turn 14 to avoid the yellow block, though some cars might be able to deal with it. Shortly after the middle of that yellow block, or a bit before the curb on the left ends, lift off and brake. The brake force here does not need to be high, and you don't have to brake for long as you turn into the final corner and try to carry as much speed as you possibly can. Hit the corner apex by going close to or even slightly on the curb on the right and start accelerating immediately. You can go very wide here and use all of the available curb once again and go close to but not into the gravel. Just remember to leave the curb as it ends and go flying towards the start-finish line. And that's a lap at the Grand Prix variant of Barcelona. Let's take a look at that lap once again from the chase cam perspective with telemetry enabled so you can still see my inputs. Go all the way to the left and brake at the 150 board. Turn in late and avoid the curb in most cars and stay tight. Feel free to use the curb and set up a bit to the left for the long right turn. Start turning in as the curb on the right begins and take a tight line, lifting off power as needed. Start fully accelerating around where the crane is ahead of your car. Go as wide as the game allows and brake around the 70 mark. Take a tight line and start accelerating early. Immediately go to the right and brake around the 70 mark. Feel free to use the inside curb and all of the runoff on exit. Brake before the curb on the right starts and turn in late. Take as much curb as your car can handle both on the left and the right side. Stay far left, lift off and brake tap when the curb ends. Accelerate early and use all of the runoff on the left. Go right and brake around the 110 mark. Use the curb on the inside and don't run too wide on exit. Head up left, lift off and brake lightly when the curb on the left ends. Take a tight line and accelerate at the yellow block. Release as you turn in after the curb on the left ends. Cut a lot on the inside and accelerate before you hit the curb. Miss the yellow strip and brake a bit after the middle of that strip. Feel free to use the curb on the inside and all of the runoff on exit. And that's how you get around the Grand Prix circuit fast. Let's now take a look at the differences in the other layouts of Barcelona. We will start with the National Old layout, as that is almost the same as the Grand Prix one, just skipping the first sector. Heading into turn 1, you will have no curb on the left side, but you will still look for the 150 board. Brake around the midway point between the 150 and 100 boards and aim for the inside of the start of the corner. Slowly trail off the brake as you let the car coast a little wide mid-corner, while bringing it in close again for the exit. You can start accelerating shortly before you get there and can cut over the curb on the inside as well, though that might unsettle some cars too much. Make sure to not go too wide on exit, as you want to position your car on the right side for the following turn. Lift off and turn in around the halfway point of the curb on the right. You might want to quickly stab the brake lightly to get the car turned in. Cut over the curbs as before, and from here on the National Old layout is the exact same as the Grand Prix one. The National layout has the same start, but differs a bit more. Heading into what would be turn 9 in the Grand Prix layout, the track deviates to the left. The added space here means that you don't have to step the brake for this corner and can go on power earlier. Be careful to not run onto the grass though, as I do here. Lift off the throttle and brake a bit before the curb on the left ends. Use as much of the curb as you can on the inside to get a good line for the following one and start accelerating. This next one does not have a curb on the inside, so be very careful with cutting your left wheels over the grass here. Go wide and use as much curb as you need on the right side. Your braking point here will be later than in the other variants, shortly after the 100 board, as you don't have that much speed. Take the following corners as in the other variants. After the long right bend at the top of the hill, there will be another deviation, however. Instead of going around the outside, you will turn in sharp right. When or shortly after the curb on the left ends, brake and turn in, trailing off the brake as you head to the apex. You can cut over the curb quite a lot, though some cars will not like the raised yellow one at all, so maybe avoid that. Start accelerating after the apex, but don't head all the way to the left side as you want to set up for the chicane properly. Position your car somewhere between the right side and the middle of the track and brake as soon as the curb on the right side begins. You can cut quite a lot in this chicane in most cars, but be careful, in some cars you might want to avoid the yellow raised parts once again. Keep at least 2 wheels on the track or the red and white curb at all times to not get a track cut. You can use a little bit of throttle in the middle of the chicane, but be careful to not overdo it so you can still take the second part nicely. Cut over the curb as much as you see fit once again and accelerate out to the left side. Try to avoid the yellow strip and straighten out the car for the setup of the final turn. You will not have to brake here this time, just maybe lift off the throttle a tiny bit to hit the apex and accelerate out to the left and finish your lap as in the other variants. Let's take a look at that lap in the chase cam perspective as well. Brake around the 125 mark for turn 1. Turn in tight and drift out mid-corner. Go tight on exit and set up right for the following turn. Lift off around the middle of the curb on the right and take the curbs as in the Grand Prix variants. The brake tap is not necessary here, just lift off and accelerate early. Use the curb on the exit, brake a bit before the curb ends and use the inside curb. Be careful with the grass on the inside when going onto the straight again. Brake around the 90 mark and take the following turns as in the Grand Prix variant. At the top of the hill, look out and brake as the curb on the left ends. Use as much of the curb as your car allows and don't run too far left. Set up more to the right and brake as the curb starts. Take as much curb in the chicane as you can get away with and run wide on exit. Don't brake, but maybe lift a bit for the final turn and use all the space on exit. And that is the national layout of Barcelona done. Let's quickly check out the pit entry as well. On the Grand Prix and National Odd layouts, turn in as soon as the yellow strip begins. Brake shortly before the dotted line and slow down enough to avoid hitting the pit wall. On the National layout, don't go as wide as you exit the chicane, but go immediately right. Accelerate towards the pit lane, but lift shortly as you approach the sharp bend to avoid smashing into the pit wall. I hope you now have a better grasp on how to get around Barcelona quickly. Making this guide took more time and effort than I originally thought. So if you want to see more of these, let me know by hitting the like button and leaving a comment. Let me know your thoughts and if I can improve anything for future track guides. I wish you happy racing and want to thank you for watching. I've been HD Racing. See you next time.